Beautiful Tuesday morning. My name is Susan Schlinker and I'm one of the HDR Industry Engagement Officers within the Graduate Research Education and Development team, and I'll be facilitating your HDR internship workshop this morning. I'm also so delighted to be joined by Prithvi Bhatbiramal, who is one of our previous HDR interns who did an amazing internship with Transport and Main Roads. Welcome, Prithvi. And we'll be asking Prithvi to share her HDR internship experience with you all a little later in the workshop today. But Prithvi's here and available on the chat if you have any questions that you would like to ask to Prithvi throughout the chat, and then we'll be having a Q&A session at the end. I'm also joined by the awesome Ivy Chen, who is the Graduate Research Education and Development Team Admin Officer. Ivy is so kind and very kindly going to be sharing links with you all in the chat as we move through the workshop. So feel free to click on these or copy and paste them into a Word doc or an email, and you can have all the information open as we go through. So a little bit of housekeeping before we start. This session is being recorded, so be mindful of that. If you would prefer not to be recorded, you're welcome to keep yourself on mute and your video off. But we love to see you, so you're very welcome to turn your camera and mic on and ask questions. And of course, we've got the chat function here as well, so feel free to put any questions either for myself or Prithvi into the chat as we go through the session. And before I begin, I'd also really like to warmly acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to the elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits, recognizing that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. And QUT acknowledges the important role the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT and the broader community. And personally, I would like to extend my acknowledgement of the traditional owners of the land that you're zooming in from, if it's any other lands in Australia other than what we've mentioned, the Turrbal and Yagara First Nations owners' lands here. Okay, so it's Tuesday morning, you've turned up to a HDR internship workshop and you're wondering what you're in for. Well, today we're going to be covering the benefits of HDR internships, what a HDR internship is and how to secure one. We're going to hear from Prithvi about her amazing HDR internship experience. And then I'm going to let you know what's involved in the process of a HDR internship. And then we're going to move into preparation tips for a HDR internship application and interview. And then we'll cover some of the additional training and support that's also available for you as you look at undertaking HDR internships. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. But before we get into the content, I want to start with a question to you, which is, I'd like you to start with the end in mind. So let's say it's about 11:15 and we wrap up this session and you walk away from the Zoom today. What is one thing that you would really love to get out of today's session? And I would ask that you pop that into the chat now, because that's going to help me know what you're here for and how I can help you walk away feeling that you've got the information and the resources that you need. So feel free to pop that into the chat and I'll have a look at them when your comments come through. So as I mentioned, I'm from the Graduate Research Education and Development team. If you've not heard of us before, we are a team that is central to the whole university, and we offer optional training and development program opportunities for HDR students. And that supports their skills in three main ways, which are the different colors of the pie chart on the screen here, in the advanced, lead, and engage pathways. So GRED really has two main objectives. The first one is to help HDRs complete their thesis. And this is mainly achieved through our language and learning educators, Kerry and Tasha, that perhaps you've come across before. And then also our second objective is to help equip HDRs for life after their degree. And so myself and my colleague, Catherine Theobald, we sit in the industry engagement team, but GRED also has a careers educator, Karen Carvu. And so both of our industry engagement and careers education, that sits more on this second objective of helping to equip HDRs for life after their degree. And as you'll see, there's many amazing reasons why undertaking HDR industry engagement opportunities is really essential for setting yourself up, irrespective of whether you're planning on moving into academia or industry post-graduation. Now, I'm going to have a quick look at some of the comments, thank you, that have come through the chat. As an international PhD student, what are the restraints I have in securing an internship position, and when can I apply for an internship? And what is the earliest that you can apply for HDR internships? Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing those comments in the chat with me, and I will definitely make sure that I cover that information for you in today's session. Before we get into diving into the content, I just want to give you a really quick overview into what a HDR internship could look like, and hear from PhD candidate Sarah Dillon discuss the value of her HDR internship experience as well.
I'm Sarah Dillon, and my PhD research looks at international entrepreneurs and their emotions, and how the ways that they manage their emotions affects their decision making. And this is important because we know a lot of small businesses fail, and if we can help entrepreneurs make better decisions, we can help fewer businesses fail. So the internship was with QUT's Centre for the Digital Economy, and the project was a sort of commercial consultancy type project for a government agency. And we were tasked with trying to understand how different stakeholders in Queensland dealt with and engaged with the digital economy. We had to speak to, not-for-profits, community groups, volunteer-based organisations, businesses, big ones, small ones, manufacturing services, and really gain an understanding of how they were engaging with the digital economy and what they needed from the digital economy. There were 3 main reports. One of them sort of addressed some of the questions that we had been asked to look at directly, and I suppose was a lot more strategic. Another report looked at just some of the general feedback and concerns and trends that we could see emerging in the space based on our analysis of what other digital economies around the world were doing. And then there was another piece that looked at, more broadly, how do communities, how do people, how does society engage with government and with government guidance and regulations and the different tools that we have to help people. Part of what we really were tasked with was running these workshops that were co-designed with the government partner. In that way, part of our role really was to help the partner gain that taste themselves directly from these different stakeholder groups, so that our reports weren't just PDFs. We'd really helped the partner understand what was going on as a whole. I think professionally, I've definitely got a better understanding of where my PhD and the skills that I've acquired during the PhD, where that fits in the bigger picture of industry. But also more broadly, how research can inform business, how research can inform society, how research can really make a difference and, move some of the levers and make change in the ways that, we often want to see. Here I was, on the one hand, you're in sell yourself mode, when you do an interview. And then on the other hand, you're like, well, now I've got to do what I've just, said I can do. And matching up your behaviors and what you're delivering with what you've said you can, it can be a little bit intimidating. But then when you can do that, it feels incredible. Like, you really realize that what the PhD gives you, it's not just the piece of paper, it's so much more. And I think in that way, personally, it's helped me become the professional I wanted to become and the human I wanted to become by doing the PhD. And I don't think I would have seen that quite as tangibly if I hadn't done the internship. Having been through the whole internship process, I can wholeheartedly recommend other PhD students give this a go. Initially, I wasn't sure about doing an internship because I come to my PhD with a number of years of industry experience already. It sort of unlocked understanding that allowed me to make more of my PhD somehow. I would definitely recommend PhD students get in there and, have a look and make an internship for yourself happen. I'm Sarah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video, and I think Sarah makes so many great points in that video, but one in particular is her saying that she had come to her PhD with a number of years of industry experience already. And she did question why she should do an internship when she already had that industry experience. But as you really hear in the video, it gave her an opportunity to really utilize her HDR skill set in that new way, and to be able to make or find so much more value in the PhD itself, and also in that skill set that she will then take forward post-graduation into employment as well. And I think that's such a beautiful summary of the value of undertaking a HDR internship, even if you do have prior industry experience. All right, so let's dive into the content, and let's start with what is industry. And, over the time that I've been in this role, I've had a number of students say, Susan, I don't want to work in advanced manufacturing. And so if that's the definition that you have in your mind of industry, that's okay, but we're going to broaden it a lot for you today. So industry actually refers to any potential end user of research. And that includes, but isn't limited to, businesses, governments, government business enterprises, not-for-profit groups, non-government organizations, community organizations, social enterprises, and a whole different range. So it's not just advanced manufacturing, it's any potential end user of research. And I would really love to hear from you. Is there a industry type that you're hoping to gain experience in through an internship during your degree? And if so, I would love for you to put that into the chat so that we can incorporate that a little bit into the session as well. And also, I see we've got one more comment in the chat that at the end of the session, they'd like to, they hope that their ability and skills to identify and secure the suitable internship would have been enhanced. Great, yes, I'm definitely hoping to achieve that for you today. All right, so why a HDR internship? And you might be thinking, well, I'm here, I'm doing an MPhil or a PhD, and I'm really on this academia track, and that's totally fine. But one thing that I would really encourage you to think about is that internships and industry engagement experience are so important, irrespective of whether you're intending to move into academia or into industry post-graduation. By undertaking an internship, it really does help you build a whole lot of industry engagement skills, including research articulation skills. And that is so important, to be able to communicate with people who perhaps don't have your disciplinary background, being able to work with them. And obviously industry experience and skills, research impact metrics, that is so valuable for being able to write grant applications. The practical application of your skills in the real world and evidence of your skills in the real world on your CV. This, I would have to say, is one of the biggest reasons to undertake a HDR internship. I remember last year I was at an industry panel event at the Center for Data Science, and they had 4 different industry partners on the panel. And in their own way, they all said the same thing, which is, we are hesitant to hire a PhD or an MPhil graduate who doesn't have something demonstrable on their CV that they can point to and say, this is evidence of how I've used my research skill set. And they said that for students who undertake HDR internships, they will always prioritize them in terms of employment opportunities, because they can see that they have that evidence on their CV, that they've utilized their research skill set. So in terms of potential opening doors for future career employment, that's definitely one of the key reasons to look at doing a HDR internship. And it's an amazing opportunity to build connections. We've had so many students who have gone on to gain employment with their industry partner, either part-time while they're still completing their PhD, or full-time if they undertook an internship towards the end of their PhD under examination. And it will definitely, the experience definitely helps to broaden your network, even internally within the academic staff that you work with as well. And I'll cover that a little bit later. So that's a few reasons why to do one. And one thing that I would encourage you to do, and my question to you now, is what sectors could you use your research skills to work in after graduation? So for an example, we had one student who her PhD topic was on antimicrobial coating on dentures. And so she felt like she was in this really niche field. And she undertook an internship with a flooring company who was looking at incorporating antimicrobial surfaces into their flooring products. And so that was a way that she could translate her skill set into a different field, into a different sector. And I would really encourage you to think about your research in that same way. Yes, you're in a specific field, but how could you translate your research into a different area so that you can broaden your scope of potential industry partners that you could potentially work with? And if you have any thoughts on sectors, please feel free to pop them in the chat now. I can see someone has said that they're interested in internship in energy, mining, resource industry. That's definitely fantastic, and heaps of connections at QUT for those sectors as well. So great choice. All right, so just a little bit more information about why undertaking a HDR internship. The stats indicate that around 60% of PhD graduates will find work outside of academia after graduation. And from the ACOLA report in 2016, and I know you might be thinking, oh, Susan, 2016, that's 7 years ago, that's so old. There really hasn't been another report come out since then that's surpassed this one. But it does say that HDR training must not be seen as an academic apprenticeship, but as the highest level of university education, the outcomes of which can be applied across a range of different careers. And that's exactly what we were just talking about, thinking about your research area and then how you can transfer those skills across to different fields, both for internships and also post-graduation as well. And my last reason on why perhaps undertake a HDR internship is just around the stats of academic jobs versus non-academic research jobs in Australia at the moment. So this information came from the post-COVID impact report in 2022, just last year. And you can see that the number of academic jobs obviously had some peaks and troughs throughout COVID, as all industry did, but that it actually came back less overall at the end of December 2021. Whereas if we have a look at the non-academic research jobs, you can see that they stayed pretty steady, even though there were some peaks and troughs, but they stayed pretty steady between the front end and the back end of the graph there. And the quantity of them as well. So on average, there's about 15,000 job ads monthly for non-academic research jobs, but only about 1,000 job ads monthly for academic jobs. So that's just another reason to keep your options open in looking for opportunities, both within academia and in industry. Okay. So that's a little bit about why you should consider doing one. And now I'd like to get into the what. What is a HDR internship? So it is a short-term and clearly defined project that's with or for industry. The project agreement needs to come through GRED, so you'll most likely will bump into each other. I'm the lead contact for business development for HDR internships. And it's a project between you as a HDR student, the academic mentor, and the industry partner. Now, I'm going to speak a little bit more about the academic mentor on the next slide, so hold that thought. It is a separate project from your thesis research. Ideally, we'd like if the internship is relevant to your research, but relevant can be a very broad definition in just the HDR skill development, or as I said, as an opportunity for you to translate or transfer your skills across to a different field. So the industry partner, they own the IP of the HDR internship project. And it can be a standalone project with an industry partner, or perhaps it could be part of a larger research collaboration that's already happening at QT. And Prithvi, who will be talking a little bit later about her HDR internship experience, her HDR internship with Transport and Main Roads was part of a larger collaboration that was happening between QUT and TMR. So that's one option for you to explore. So the length of the internship can be 3, 4, 5, or 6 months in length. And at the moment, the mechanisms that we use to facilitate HDR internships is that we work with the Graduate Research Centre to effectively pause your candidature. The candidature clock stops ticking because we move you from your thesis unit into IFN 004, which is a HDR internship shell unit. You're in that shell unit for the duration of the internship. And then when your internship is complete, we move you back into your thesis unit, and then we push the milestones out for the length of time that the internship was. So that's in what we call a standalone internship. You'll see over the next few months, there's going to be a couple of different internship types that are released, and they will have different mechanisms around that. But at this point in time, these are the mechanisms that we use to facilitate HDR internships. So when we pause your candidature, it also means that your scholarship is paused. And this is why we request funding from the industry partner, because obviously we want you to be able to continue covering your living expenses while you're undertaking an internship. So we ask the industry partner for funding, which is then provided to QT, and QT provide you with that funding as a fortnightly stipend in lieu of receiving your normal scholarship throughout the duration of the internship. Now, I remember from the chat, we had a question on what is the earliest that you can undertake a HDR internship. So this is what we've got the eligibility criteria on the bottom right hand of the screen now. So you'll see that for IF 49 students, they need to complete stage 2. And IF 80 students and KK 59 students need to complete their research project proposal. ED 11 students need to complete the work in progress doc, and all students in all degrees need to also complete an equivalent of 6 months full-time degree, full-time study of your degree. So they're the two eligibilities. So once you've completed if let's say you're a PhD student, IF 49 student, once you've completed the 6 months full-time equivalent study and also completed your stage 2, then that means that you're eligible to be able to undertake an internship. So what that means is that you can actually start looking a little bit earlier than those milestones if you would like to, and you need to have completed those as a minimum to be able to actually undertake the internship. So I hope that answers the question. And I remember there was also a question around international students as well, and if there's any difference there. So with the QUT HDR internship program, there are, I guess, 2 main ways that students will find and source an internship opportunity. I would say 70% of students, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but about 70% of students self-source or find their own HDR internship opportunity. And then in my role, there are some business development activities that I do where I'm also finding internship opportunities with industry partners, listing them on the internships HiQ site so that you can apply for those opportunities. So we try really, really hard to work with industry partners that can accommodate both international and domestic students. You will find that occasionally there may be industry partners, particularly in the defense space, that for security clearance reasons, they can only accept Australian citizen HDR interns. So on the off time, there could be the odd industry partner that unfortunately international students aren't able to apply for those HDR internship opportunities. But overall, we try really, really hard. And when you have a look at those internship opportunities that are listed on the HiQ site, it will say whether they're open to domestic and international students. And if you're self-sourcing your own internship, then Also, you're obviously approaching industry partners that are going to be able to accommodate international students. So I hope that answers those couple of questions. And Daniel has said, is that an additional 6 months on top of the others? For IF80, the research proposal is due in 6 months, so you could start an internship. Yes, okay, yep. I see what you mean, Daniel. It's no, they're not stacking on top of each other. So once you've completed 6 months full-time equivalent study, and hopefully you've completed the research project proposal within that, that's fine. It's not an additional 6 months. So it just 6 months plus the completion of that milestone. Okay, so I mentioned the academic mentor, and this is a QUT staff member that you are supported throughout the project by. And you have a couple of options that your academic mentor, it can be your supervisor for your HDR degree, or it can be another QUT academic staff member who has expertise relevant to the internship project. They assist with developing and vetting the project for suitability, because we want to make sure that the projects are feasible and reasonable for students to complete within the timeframe. And academic mentors are also incentivized as well. So from that funding that I mentioned from the industry partner, you as a student receive the overwhelming majority of it in terms of fortnightly stipends, but the academic mentor does receive a small amount into their research account at the completion of the internship, just to thank them for supporting the project. So if you're speaking to your supervisor about wanting to undertake a HDR internship, let them know that there are some incentives if they are able to be your academic mentor. And if they would like any more information on that, they're very welcome to reach out to me, and I'll provide you an email address at the end for that. Okay, so how to secure a HDR internship. So this is what I was talking about before, that there are two main ways. I'm going to start with point 2, actually. Self-sourcing an internship, because as I mentioned, this is really how the majority of students find their HDR internship opportunities. So this is where, and if you've not been to it previously, but I also run a separate workshop on self-sourcing HDR internship, and I would really recommend that you come along to that because I help you work through identifying a potential internship industry partner from your contacts or network of contacts, or at least starting to think about who's in your network and who you could approach. Then I provide you with some guidance on how to establish a relationship with that industry partner first. And this is so crucial, because you don't want to be just cold calling industry partners saying, hi, I'm a MPhil student at QT, can I have an internship, please? They will more often than not say no, because they don't know you. So it's really important that we find a way to help you establish a relationship with the industry partner first, so that you can get to know the organization, they can get to know you, before you then pitch the internship opportunity to them. And then you can loop me in and say, hey, Susan, I've got an industry partner now. Can you help me formalize the internship with the agreement? And I'll be very happy to help you with that. So that's self-sourcing. And I would really recommend that you come along to that workshop and investigate the self-sourcing road or model that we provide to you in that workshop, because it's most likely how you will find an internship. However, then there's also option 1, which is to apply for HDR internships that are advertised on HiQ. So these are opportunities that I've found through business development with industry partners for the QT HDR internship program. But you'll also notice that we advertise internship opportunities through a company called HDR Intern. They are an approved third-party provider of HDR internships for QT. So you're very welcome to apply for those opportunities as well. And then occasionally we have external programs as well, besides those two. So the Nicolas Baudin program, which is internships in France, the STEM policy graduate internship program, etc. You might see some other ones within the list of HDR internship opportunities on HiQ. So they're your two main ways that you'll be able to find and secure an internship opportunity. And what I want to do now is just give you a really quick overview of what's involved in those two ways. So this is option one if you're applying for a HDR internship opportunity that's listed on the HiQ site. So step one is you apply for it. And then once I receive your application, I do an internship eligibility check, which is exactly what we just spoke about before, making sure that you've hit that minimum milestone and the 6 months full-time equivalent study. If you are then chosen to progress with the internship opportunity, the industry partner will then invite you for an interview. More often than not, these are done by Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and occasionally they're done in person. Then you participate in finalizing the internship agreement with me. I send you all the documentation that you need. Step 5 is I also send you the pre-internship requirements. It's an online module that takes you about an hour to complete. And then, yay, you commence your internship, exciting times. Seeing as you're in IFN 004, the HDR Internship Shell Unit, you have the mid and the final internship presentations, which are essentially your pieces of assessment for that HDR Internship Shell Unit. And that's getting myself, your industry partner, and the academic mentor together and providing a research consultant presentation or update as to how the project is going, what you've done, your professional development learnings from the opportunity. Once your internship is complete, we then have a couple of post-internship requirements. And again, I send them to you. We also ask you to do the post-internship survey so that you can be in the running for the HDR Intern of the Year awards. And then you receive your HDR internship completion certificate, and you're very welcome to share that on LinkedIn. That certificate is something that you can then point to future prospective employers to say, I did an internship. Let me tell you about the experience and how I demonstrated my research skill set through that opportunity. So that is if you're applying for a HDR internship. But self-sourcing an internship is a little bit different in the first 3 steps. So instead of applying and interviewing, as you did in the first process option I showed you, step 1 is you identify a potential industry partner, and then step 2 is reaching out to form a relationship with that industry partner. And if you come to the self-sourcing workshop, then I'll provide you a model on how you can do that. Once you've spent some time with them and formed a relationship with them, you then pitch the internship to them. And then the rest of the steps are exactly the same. Then we all participate in finalizing the agreement. You do the pre-internship requirements, you commence, you do the internship, and then we wrap it up at the end. So that's a little bit of an overview of what's involved, what the process is. As I mentioned, we also do have the self-sourcing HDR internship training session. I would highly recommend that you come along to it. I've just noticed that I've put the wrong date on the slide, so I will update that before I send the slides out to you all tomorrow. The next one will be coming up in May. I believe it's the 24th of May. My colleague Catherine will be taking that session. But please do register and come along to it. And for self-sourcing an internship, there's also some additional information on HiQ that you can find. You can also email hdr.intern@qut.edu.au once you've found an industry partner, and we can provide you with all the necessary forms and guidance on how to then facilitate the internship. And also, I mentioned earlier in the session, we have a careers educator, Karen Carvu. She is hosting an informational interview for researchers workshop on the 17th of April, which is next Monday. And I would strongly recommend that you attend that one, because informational interviews is how we suggest that you build a relationship with prospective industry partners. So that workshop will be really essential in terms of developing skills that you might need when you're self-sourcing your own internship. If you're sitting there thinking, oh, Susan, I don't think I know anyone. I don't think I know any prospective industry partners. I don't I don't have a network. What is a network? How do I even begin? Don't stress, all good. Here are some options for you. There are modules that are free and available through QUT called Employ Your Ability. And I would really recommend engaging with these modules. Here's just a few of connections, opening doors, creating and maintaining a powerful first impression. So tell me about yourself. These are little modules that can really help you upskill in terms of being able to network with people. And then it's just a matter of chatting to your supervisor and saying, hey, I'd really like to attend events where prospective industry partners might be available, attending conferences, looking out for all of the emails that come through from QUT. The Office of Industry Engagement had a research commercialization club recently, where a whole lot of industry partners were attending in person. So if you do some of these little modules and upskill yourself and then put yourself out there by attending events and connecting with people, that's a really great way to start. And then just to talk to you about internship presentations, what they might look like. I mentioned these in the process before. So you are required to do a mid-internship presentation and a final internship presentation. They're both a maximum of an hour long. They're both done virtually more often than not, again on Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So the halfway one is really just to let everyone know where you're up to, what challenges, successes that you've had. And then the final one is wrapping up the full project, handing anything over to the industry partner, and also reflecting on your professional development learnings as well. And then we have the completion certificate as well. So this is what you receive when you have completed your internship, and you're very welcome to share this on LinkedIn. It's signed by the Senior Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research, Professor Christopher Barner-Kowalik. So it's an official memento of your internship experience. So I'm just going to pause there for a second because I can see some comments have come through the chat, and that's mostly the links from Ivy. Ivy, we've got one comment in there that one of the links had expired. If you're able to, oh, yep, you're already onto it. Perfect. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my presentation now, and I'm going to invite Prithvi to turn your camera and mic on and to share your presentation about your HDR internship experience.
Thanks, Susan. Just 1 second. Yeah. It's okay.
Yes, we can see. Thank you.
You can see the slides?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So thanks, Susan, for the opportunity to talk about my experience with the HDR internship. So just to give a background to everyone, my PhD is focusing on developing improved methods to analyze discrete outcome problems. These are widely used in analyzing consumer choice behavior, travel behavior, and also road safety analysis. So during my PhD, I have implemented an open source Python software that helps in estimating these advanced models. And during my internship, I had an opportunity to test or use my software on consumer choice behavior that was analyzing user preferences for MaaS and new mobility alternatives in Queensland. So the idea of MaaS is it's nothing but it's mobility as a service. So this concept is quite popular in the European countries, where like you pay for your utilities, like for example, electricity or internet, where you pay a subscription amount every monthly or weekly, and you get the services. Transportation is also treated like that. So wherein, if you get a combination of services like use of public transport, e-scooter access, or some rideshare facilities, and based on your usage, you pay a subscription amount towards the end of the month. So this way, the transportation agencies around the world are trying these new mobility options to see if people move away from car ownership and adopt some sustainable transport options. So during this internship, the main partners were TMR, that is the Queensland Transport Department of Transport and Main Roads, and RICQ was also a partner, which helped us in a lot of data collection. And QUT was from QUT, it was my professor and I, where we did a lot of data analysis for the team. So initially, I went and discussed my interest with my principal supervisor. I told him that I would like to do an internship because I come from the industry again. I have like 5 years of experience from the industry. So I thought it would be an important, important point to, apply my research in the industry and get to know what it feels like applying your research directly into industry related problems. So first we had a discussion with another industry partner. So that was something to do with activity based modeling. I don't want to get into the details, but it was about travel behavior analysis. But then towards the end, it didn't work out. But since my supervisor knew that I'm interested in doing an internship, he offered me another one, which was about analyzing the preferences for mass within Queensland. So then we also we also requested a QUT mentor, another professor, Douglas Baker from the School of Architecture and Built Environment. So he agreed, to mentor me for the 6 months of the internship. So one of the key requirements that I had was that I wanted to apply the skills that I had developed during my PhD in the internship. So I wanted to see if it was able to solve any real world problem. So and the alignment with my PhD topic was an important criteria for me. And since mass or analyzing preferences for mass was understanding consumer choice behavior with respect to transport, so I thought it would be a great idea or a great way to do the internship. So the opportunities that I saw here was I was getting access to some new data sets that can test my methods and see how it works in real world scenarios. And also the experience to independently plan and deliver the project was an add-on. So while research also teaches you some kind of independence to design and implement your own research study, but transferring those skills into the industry world would be an excellent way of testing your abilities. So a bit of background, like I mentioned, mobility as a service is like a subscription plan that can cater to all your transport services. This idea, while it is popular in Europe, it is not. It's not. It has not been implemented within Australia. But there are a lot of research teams that are trying to understand the preferences for mass. And in Queensland, ours was the first study. So the objective of the study was to understand the underlying preferences for mass bundles. So within the mass bundle, what people would like to have more access to, whether it was public transport or whether it was rideshare facilities or whether it was e-scooters. And along with these mass services, we also offered some preferences, like we also offered some incentives for the customers, like rewards in terms of grocery discounts or entertainment tickets and coupons and things like that. And we wanted to see if people were more inclined to buy mass services if these incentives were provided. And also we wanted to identify demographic groups among whom mass could be a potential option for people to choose. So for this, my key responsibilities were to design the survey. So the data collection was mostly conducted by RACQ. So once I prepared the survey and questionnaires, I handed it over to RACQ, and they collected the data from me using a market research team. And then once I got back the data, my responsibilities were to clean the data and process it for the analysis. I conducted a detailed exploratory analysis and some discrete outcome modeling. So over the period of 6 months, I had to present a progress update every week with the clients, with team members from TMR as well as RACQ. And towards the end of the internship, I provided them with a detailed documentation and report based on the findings that I was able to capture from the data analysis. So it was a wholesome experience. So from the start of the project where I had to design the questionnaire and as well as do the analysis, it was a mini project that I was able to do within 6 months of time. So the key takeaways were the skills that I developed during the 6 months of my internship. So while I had some programming experience during my PhD, I was not able to gain specific skills in terms of visualization. So the data that I was able to gather from this project, I utilized it to learn Tableau, which is a visualization tool. So another thing that was very important was the development of my ability to convey in ideas to the clients. So in general, what happens is during our research, we tend to use all these technical terms like discrete outcome modeling, statistical analysis, and things like that. But for the industry partner, it does not mean anything until and unless we are able to, clearly interpret what it means for practical applications. So this way, the weekly progress meetings allowed me to use simpler language so that my ideas were conveyed more clearly to the clients. And also, as I said, the 6 months had different stages of the project that I had to independently handle and deliver. So this internship allowed me to handle the projects more independently. Although my supervisors and the mentors were there to guide you, but it's more or less you're handling everything on your own. And like I said, my main objective of choosing this internship was its alignment with my PhD topic. So therefore, I gained some benefits to my PhD out of this internship. That is, from this study, we were able to publish we were able to develop a book chapter that is under review and is considered for publication. Also, the software that I developed during my PhD, I was able to test it and show its significance to TMR. And now we have shared that software with TMR and for their future use. And also the additional data sets that I was able to capture through this internship, I'm able to use that to test my methods and to improve them. So it's both win-win situation for me as well as for the clients. So they get a lot of information about mass preferences, whereas I get a lot of data for my testing. So during this entire PhD, the HDR team, the support team, has been very helpful, especially Simon and Susan. So they have taken care of all the administrative stuff, that is, whipping up the agreements, talking to all 3 partners, and then arranging for periodic progress updates. So I had nothing to worry about in that part. I was just, required to work on the internship, as well as they provided support during the entire 6 months. They also arranged periodic, progress updates like the mid-internship presentation as well as the final internship presentation, and also provided an overall mentoring. So I'm happy to answer any questions or any concerns you have, or if you want to talk to me one-on-one, I'm available. I can drop in my email address on the chat box. So if anyone wants to connect, thank you.
Thanks so much for your amazing presentation, Prithvi. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things that I think you mentioned that were so wonderful for other students to be able to hear. The first one is that you were working on one internship opportunity and that one didn't work out. And so this one with TMR was the second internship that you were actively pursuing. And I think that that's definitely something that students should know, that they don't always work out, and to definitely have multiple irons in the fire, so to speak. And did you have any, I guess, advice on just sort of bouncing back, quickly from that when that one didn't work out?
Yeah, so the first thing is to talk to your supervisors and ensure that you've expressed your interest clearly, that you want to do an internship. So that they know, okay, this person is really interested, and whenever there's an opportunity that pops up, your name is the first that comes to their mind. So since I've been also during the I was in my third year when I started the internship, so I wanted some time for my PhD so that I could work in although the PhD clock stops, I wanted to make sure that the insights that I gained from the internship can be helpful in my thesis as well. So that way, I think it's always important to be prepared, and talk to your supervisors and make sure that they know what you really want. Yeah.
And I also loved that one of your objectives for the internship was, as you said, you'd come with industry experience previously, but you really saw this as a new opportunity to apply the newly developed research skill set from your degree. And did you find that the experience of the internship met that goal for you?
Yes, it did. Like I said, I was able to see during your internship, what happens is you tend to focus on specific skills. Like my focus was only on developing my programming skills in Python and optimization and so on. So I was not able to give time for my other skills like visualization, for example. So this internship provided me with the data as well as the opportunity. So during the 6 months, I was able to explore that part of exploratory analysis and visualization, so which is more relevant for the industry. So if you just give them a bunch of codes and programs, it's very difficult for them to interpret it and appreciate it, but the same things that the outputs from these codes, if I'm able to visualize it well and present them clearly, that's when it's more relevant to the industry partners. And that's the skill that we need to, again, go back to the industry, or even in academics. I think it's an important skill that we should learn. Yeah,
absolutely. Being able to I remember Liz Minchin, who was the editor-in-chief of The Conversation, she said so eloquently once in a session with HDR students that smart and curious people aren't going to be able to engage with you if they can't understand what you're saying. Yes. So I really appreciated that you noted in your presentation just being able to tailor your communication style so that the industry partner always knows what's in it for them, what's applying for them. And also, I just wanted to say a massive congratulations, because having SearchLogit as something, a program that's implemented at TMR, it's in use at TMR, that's an amazing outcome from your internship to have on your CV. And congratulations. It's definitely something that you can point to, to future career prospective employers. And so we might move on through the rest of the workshop now, but feel free to pop your questions into the chat. Prithvi can either answer them in chat, or we're also going to have another Q&A session at the end. So let me just share my screen again. Okay, hopefully you can all see this. So now that we've heard an example of what a HDR internship could look like, I'm just returning back to that first option of how to source and secure an internship. And that's the option of applying for an existing internship opportunity that's listed on the HiQ site. Whereas the self-sourcing an internship, that's the second option, and we have a whole workshop devoted just to that. But for applying, we have provided you with some amazing resources in the form of a PDF guide and a video called Nailing Your HDR Internship Application. I would highly recommend that you consult either the PDF or the video when you are preparing your HDR internship application, because internship applications are highly competitive. Really do treat it like a job application, and you want to be able to put your best foot forward, so to speak. So please do make sure that you can, pardon me, consult the Nailing Your HDR Internship Application resources when you are applying. And then let's talk about interviewing. So once, as you saw from the process, once we've received your applications and we do the internship eligibility checks, we pass them back on to the industry partner, and then they shortlist the candidates that they would like to interview for the internship. And more often than not, these are Zoom or Microsoft Teams interviews, and occasionally in person. And after the interviews, the industry partner then selects a student that they would like to continue on to the internship project itself. So the interview formats, they can vary depending on the industry type and the industry partner. Sometimes it's informal chat, sometimes it's structured questions, sometimes they ask you to do small activities relating to the skills that you will need for the internship project. So it's good to be flexible, that you could have any style of interview. So our careers educator in GRED, Karen Carvu, she also has some career competitive interview strategies coming up in November. It's a great workshop, and I would really recommend that you register to attend that one to brush up on your interview skills. But some interview guidance that I would provide you from my own experience. A lot of the times the industry partner invites me to come along and be a part of the interviews. So I see nearly all of them. And that's just really, I'm just there in case the students have any questions about the HDR internship program. That obviously the industry partner isn't able to answer. So I'm there for additional support. And these are just a few of my personal tips for you when thinking about interviewing for a HDR internship interview. Please join the Zoom early. It's always going to make a great impression if you're on time or early. And then also think about the lighting for your Zoom as well. If you're in the dark or your face is quite shaded and they can't quite see you, it's really hard to build rapport online if you can't be seen. I would definitely recommend to organize to be in a quiet location. There's nothing more irritating when you're in an interview and you have like a cafe beeping orders coming out. So just, there's plenty of amazing spaces around QUT. Just, please try and find a quiet one. Please wear professional clothing, at least from the waist up. If you're on Zoom and you want to have your pajama pants or your board shorts on underneath, that's fine. But please do have a professional shirt on top. I've got my QUT collared polo on today. It just, again, it creates a great impression for the industry partner. Body language on Zoom. I know it can seem a little bit weird and maybe a little bit odd to communicate with a camera and smile at a camera when, it's the real person isn't right in front of you. But in terms of building rapport, it's so essential to smile, to engage with direct eye contact, and to use hand gestures as well. Humans really like eye contact, hand gestures, smiles, and so it will put you in better stead with your industry partner in terms of building rapport quite quickly if you're able to do all of those things. And hopefully I've been an excellent example of body language, Zoom positive body language on the workshop today. Speak up and give concise answers. One thing that I have seen students do before And I get it, when you're nervous, sometimes you get motor mouth where you're just talking. But I've often seen students just talk for about 15 minutes about their PhD topic, and then that doesn't give the industry partner really much time to ask questions. So just think about providing concise answers that are, maybe a couple of minutes long at the most, so that you're giving the industry partner lots of opportunity to ask questions. And also, please be confident. Don't undersell your skills and experience. I have seen so many amazing HDR students who, I've read their CV, I've read their application, and I know that they're amazing, but they get in and they get shy, and they don't want to, somehow they feel that it's inappropriate to actually display their skills and experience. But don't sell yourself short. You all have amazing skills and experience, and please share them confidently with the industry partner. And Prithvi made a really great point, which is keeping on track with what the industry partner wants to know. And this is definitely true in the internship and also in the internship interview. So my key tips and tricks for you are to look carefully at the advertised internship opportunity and make notes on what they're looking for, both in terms of skills, or it could be behavioral or attitudinal qualities that they're looking for. Maybe they're looking for someone who's a team player, or calm in chaotic situations, or whatever they're looking for. So have a look at what they're looking for and see if you can think about some examples that you can give them. Learn the language that the industry partner has used to describe the competencies that they're looking for in the internship applicants. If you can use some of their same language, it will make them think that you're on the same page with them, that you're a really good fit for it. And that's a really skillful way to build rapport and to put yourself forward as the best candidate. Use the STAR method. So this is situation, task, action, and result. And this is something that you can Google. There's lots of resources available out there for it. But this is a way to frame your responses when the industry partner asks you questions, so that you're really showing and walking them through, okay, this was the situation, this was my part in it, this is the action that I took, and then this was the outcome or the result of that action. So it gives them a nice little summary of what you have done, so that they can deduce what you will do in their specific internship situation. And if you are not successful in your first internship interview, that is totally fine. I always say there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. So have a look at it as a learning opportunity. You can reflect, you can chat with me, you can chat with the industry partner for constructive feedback, and refine and improve as you go. And my last tip for internship interviews is know what you have that's relevant. And I've put them in order here. So relevant skills. And then relevant education. You could even look back at previous unit outlines, maybe even from undergrad, if that's something that could be relevant to the industry partner for the particular internship project. Relevant employment experience. Now, this is huge. I will give you an example. We had an internship with the Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art, Kwai Goma, and they were looking for a student who had AI skill set, but it was ideal if a student also had some understanding of art. And the student who ended up being selected, he was an international student from Mexico. He had previously worked in an art gallery in Mexico, and that employment experience was so relevant because Kwai Goma wanted to know that someone, yes, of course, they had the AI skill set and capabilities, but that they could also understand the world of art. And so relevant employment experience, definitely something to discuss in your interview. Your research topic, but make sure you keep it really short and concise. And then prepare for the interview by making a short list of examples. Have a look through the advertised internship opportunity, look at what they're looking for, and then ask yourself, okay, if they ask me a question about this skill or about this behavioral or attitudinal quality, what example from my own bank of personal and professional experiences am I going to share with them to be able to demonstrate that I possess that skill, experience, or quality? If you are not sure of your strengths, I would recommend undertaking a character strengths survey. QUT is not affiliated with the VIA character strength survey in any way. It's just one that we find particularly good. You do need to create a profile to be able to do it. But if you're sitting there thinking, Susan, I have no idea how I would even begin to discuss what I'm good at, and I don't even know what I'm good at, I would recommend starting here, starting with the character strength survey. Everyone has their own strengths, and you just need to take a little time to find out what they are. And then my last preparation tip for interview and internship is QUT also has the ASIN modules for free. And there are a few available here. For example, preparing for your work integrated learning experience, succeeding in your work integrated learning activity, understanding Australian workplace cultures. This one, I have been given excellent feedback from international students that it actually really helped them to prepare to undertake the internship and work in an Australian workplace if it was their first time doing so. So I would strongly recommend that. And then also there is a free program through QUT called Big Interview. And this is where you can actually practice your interview skills with the program. And this is so essential. If you've not interviewed for a really long time and you're rusty, this is an amazing way to build your interview experience back up. And if you've not interviewed with your research skill set, it's another way that you can practice. So I highly recommend having a look at it. This is just a little bit more information on that understanding workplace cultures module that's free and available through ASIN. And I would highly recommend having a look at it. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat to see if any messages have come through. There is one. Susan, what do you think about the possibilities of internships which are not directly related to my PhD project? For example, let's say if my project is related molecular modeling and I want to do an internship on circularity of or life cycle assessments, is this possible? Do you have any experience in such cases? I would say that for most internship projects, they're going to be defined by the industry partner rather than what you're wanting to do. So that's one thing to bear in mind. But we certainly have had students do internships that are a little bit different to their research topic in their HDR degree previously. And it's just about finding a link, a viable or feasible link for you on why that internship opportunity, what it's going to help you with in terms of your own research skill set development. But as I said, for HDR internships, in terms of it being relevant to your research topic, relevant can be in your research skill set broad development. So I think if you're looking for something different, go for it, but just chat with your supervisor as well. And I know Prithvi would give you that advice to chat with your supervisor, make sure that it is something that will be suitable for you. Okay, so we've covered a lot today, and I just, before we move into the end of the session, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview on where to start. I'd recommend reading through the HDR internship page on HiQ. Also submit your registration to the HDR Industry Engagement Program. This is because sometimes I have industry partners that will call and say, hey, Suze, we need 2 interns to start in 2 weeks on this project. I don't have time to promote that. And so if I have your registration in the HDR Industry Engagement Program, then I can have a look through your registrations and go, oh, okay, that student looks like they could be a good fit. That one could be a good fit. And I'll call you or email you and say, hey, I have this opportunity. Are you interested? So please submit your registration. Start a conversation with your supervisor. Both myself and Prithvi have said that that is essential. Let them know that you're interested in undertaking an internship, and definitely come along to the self-sourcing and HDR internship workshop as well. Read the GRED emails. Every Tuesday, there is a fabulous orange newsletter in your inbox, which will have different internship opportunities available. Apply for those internships, practice your interview skills on Big Interview, and they would be my top tips on where to get started with HDR industry engagement today. This is just a little more information about the industry engagement form, but essentially it's going to trigger an email to your supervisor, which is great. You want to talk to them anyway about your interest in internships. And it'll also let me know that you're available and interested, and I can contact you if I have something that I can't promote. These are the wonderful orange newsletters that you will find all internships information in. And this is the HiQ site on where you can apply for different internship opportunities as well. So upcoming sessions, I forgot to update these as well, naughty me, but that's okay. I will update them and I will send it out to you tomorrow with the slides from this session, but there will be a HDR industry engagement workshop coming up in July, and the next self-sourcing HDR internship workshop is coming up in May. And if you're currently working with industry, we would love to know about it. If you have an industry partner that you're working with as part of your degree, or you're employed with them, please let us know. Feel free to send an email to hdr.intern@qut.edu.au, and we would love to hear about that. Now, before we move into the Q&A session, Ivy is going to put the link into the chat for you of our 1-minute quick anonymous survey. I'd love to know what you thought went well about this session, what you enjoyed. If you have any feedback for me as well, that would be great. And while you're doing that, I'm just having a quick look in the chat. Annie says, I missed the beginning of the workshop. Would I be able to get a copy of today's slides? Yes, Annie. I will be most likely sending them out to you all tomorrow. And yes, we will definitely include you. I still haven't completed the first 6 months of my HDR. Can I still register for the industry engagement program? That is such a good question. I'm so glad you asked that. Yes, you are welcome to register for the industry engagement program at any point, even if you haven't met those minimum criteria for an internship at this stage. Yes, please do submit your registration. Okay, my last little tip and trick for you is also the eGrad School of Australia. So there are amazing modules available that are free for QUT students. Other students from other universities need to pay to access these, and you have them all free. I would strongly recommend having a look at the modules that are available through the eGrad School, particularly things like professional communication and project management. These skills are really helpful when it comes to undertaking a HDR internship. So have a look at what's available, set yourself a goal, sign up to one of them this year or multiple of them. And also earlier in the session, earlier in the chat, Ivy had shared a link on the HDR skills assessment tool. So when you undertake that HDR skills assessment tool, you can see what your strengths are and perhaps what some areas that might need improvement in. And that's one way that you can say, oh, okay, I can see these areas need improvement. I'll see if there's any eGrad School modules available to help me with that. And the feedback that I had from some recent graduates who had moved into working in industry was that they had done the HDR skills assessment tool, and at the time they thought, you know, sure, okay, I'll upskill in areas that it's telling me that I should. And then they found that once they moved into employment after graduation, they could see that they actually really needed and utilized those skills post-graduation. And it was just this really beautiful moment where they said, we finally understood, once we were employed, we finally understood why that HDR skills assessment is available and actually how useful it is to becoming a well-rounded researcher. So I recommend checking out all of that. Okay. So we've come to the end of the session. If you haven't already, please put your student ID into the chat box, and this is how I will be able to get in contact with you with the slides from today's session. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, but I will just make mention that hdr.intern@qut.edu.au is our email address. So if you have any questions that you think of later, you're very welcome to email. But otherwise, let's have a look. If there's, I think I've covered all of the questions in the chat. If anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat now, or turn on your camera and mic. We'd love to see your beautiful face. And you can ask questions to either myself or Prithvi. And if you're like me and you think of a question later, just feel free to email it through. All right, I'm going to give it one more minute, just in case there's any last questions. Oh, thank you for your gorgeous feedback. We got a comment in the chat. This has been extremely useful and one of the most effective sessions I've attended. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time as well. It's always a great opportunity to look at what options that you have available for you during your degree. So thank you for being here as well. And Prithvi's also just put her email address into the chat as well. So if anyone has any questions that they would like to email Prithvi offline, that's really kind. Thank you, Prithvi. Okay, I think we have no further questions then. So thank you all so much for coming along to the session. I'm really glad that some of you have shared comments that it was helpful, it's been useful. I will be in touch with you all probably tomorrow with a copy of the slides and also a copy of the recording. So watch out your email for that. And you're very welcome to email me if you have any other questions. Other than that, thank you for coming along. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and we'll see you at the next session. Thank you. Bye.